I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome our guests this evening and those watching on cable. First order of business is the minutes of November 13th, regular and executive sessions. Mr. O'Leary.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the November 13th, 2014 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, seconded by Mr. Fode. Any discussion? Discussion on the minutes of November 13th, Jeff? Anything?
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. We also have the executive session of November 13th.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the November 13th, 2014 executive session minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Mr. O'Leary, second by Mr. Yule. Any discussion? Modifications, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Anyone here for public comment? Yes, please.
Podium, thank you.
Good evening.
And it's good to have you here, Sandy.
Thank you. I'm Sandy Carricker, and I help run the North Reading Food Pantry, and I'm here to kind of talk to you about the holiday season and some of the things that you allow us to do, because we wouldn't be able to do anything without the space that you give to us and the support that the town administrators and the selectmen and all of the people here in the building give to us to make it possible. We right now are serving 214 families that live in North Reading. That's 542 people, 162 kids. I have this all written down if somebody needs it. 337 adults and 43 seniors. This is on a regular basis. There is some diversity in our population, because there's some diversity in the population of North Reading. Not much. In November, which we just closed today because we're only open on Mondays, we served 206 families altogether. And I should mention that some of our families come in and out of the food pantry depending on their circumstances. If you're a roofer, you're making good money in the summer, but the winter may be tough. So as their income fluctuates, we may see somebody for a few months and then not see them again. In November, we gave out 12,580 pounds of food and 192 $10 gift cards. And the reason we give out gift cards to grocery stores is because if you're a family on food stamps, you're not allowed to buy anything that's taxable. No toilet paper, no laundry detergent.
Wow.
That's taxable. Some brilliant person in the legislature decided that taxable items should not be paid by food stamps. So we try to provide those things. When we have food drives, we ask people for those things, but we don't always have enough. And so we supplement. We give a $10 gift certificate once a month to each family, and we give $10 more for each child under 18. And as I said, in November, that was 192 that we gave out. The Christian Community Service Organization of North Reading is the overarching charity, the 501(c) that is in charge of all of our programs. And we have three major programs. The first one is financial assistance, and that's for residents who find themselves in an emergency situation. If you are somebody who works at McDonald's, you get paid by the hour. If you don't show up, you don't get paid. You get a flat tire. Have you bought a tire recently? I just put 4 new tires on my car. That's a day's pay, at least, maybe 2, maybe more if you work at McDonald's. Now you've lost a day's pay and you have to come up with the tire. But if you don't put the tire on your car, you don't get to work. Then you don't get a paycheck. But if you buy the tire, you don't have enough for your rent because they have nothing. There are no nets for these people. So our families really do come to us in emergency situations, and we are able to keep them in their homes or allow them to keep their jobs. Because I'll tell you, if you don't show up at McDonald's very often, you don't keep the job. So that's important. The second major program that we run is the food pantry. And as I just said, there's a need. We are seeing, well, this month alone we had 7 new families we'd never seen before. And then we also offer a micro loan program called Dare to Begin that we give no interest loans to people who want to go back to school or start a small business. And that's not been as huge as I hope that it would be, but we have done some good things, and we have a number of graduates of that program who have paid us back, who are now working at much better jobs because of the $1,000 or whatever it was that we loaned to them. We had a woman come to us last week who put herself through school, has a bachelor's degree, but can't afford to take the certification exams to become a full-time teacher. So she's working in a daycare, and we'll double her pay by giving her a $1,000 loan and letting her pass the tests and become a full-time teacher. But we do a lot of other things. We sponsor Christmas on the Common and the Easter Sunrise Service because we are an ecumenical group sponsored by all the churches. But we're non-denominational, and we certainly have no requirements of people having any kind of religious affiliation in order to come to the food pantry. The only criteria for using the food pantry or any of our services is that you have to be a resident of North Reading, you have to show financial need, or you have to be someone who goes to one of our churches in town and also show financial need. But let me tell you about some of the other things that we do. We give backpacks every fall with back-to-school supplies. This year we were really lucky. Dunkin' Donuts gave us 20 tickets to a Bruins game on November 4th. And so CCS hired a bus, and we gave $10 to each of the kids. I found out later that didn't buy a Coke and a hot dog. But it was something. And they had a wonderful time. We give out Thanksgiving dinner baskets. We just did that this weekend. The dinner baskets include a turkey and all the things you need to make a Thanksgiving dinner. So we gave out 73, I think, at the Bachelor School. The Wakefield Elks gave out 15. The St. Teresa's Knights of Columbus gave out 12. And then on Thanksgiving Day, the Horseshoe is donating 15 meals for shut-ins that will be delivered, hot meals delivered to them on Christmas Day. We usually have a winter coat and hat drive. We provide children's clothing as needed. And the way that works, we have a Facebook page, and I will post something on the Facebook page. For instance, we have a young mother who has a 6-month-old baby and is looking for clothes for that baby. I put that out on Facebook, and within an hour we had mothers who said, I have some gently used, my kid's outgrown it, you can have it, and that works really well. We do Christmas baskets just like we do Thanksgiving, but this time instead of being at the Bachelor School, it's at the Little School. We do Christmas gifts through the Take-A-Tag. You've probably seen the tags in the post office and various places like that. And we provide Easter dinner baskets too. That's a little more informal, and we do that just through the food pantry. We're totally volunteer, and we get tremendous support from the residents and local businesses. For instance, just now, because we've just finished Thanksgiving, we were given $2,000 by Kiva Systems, which is a robotic company off of Concord Street, just to cover anything we might need for the holidays. Patriot Mortgage bought 65 roasting pans for our turkeys. And Paychecks and DigSafe. DigSafe is a new company that just moved in across the street in Wilmington, but they wanted to help us, so they provided baskets. Paycheck provided baskets. It's just amazing. What I have found is that if you ask, people are very willing to donate. They just had the senior dinner that's sponsored by Brad Jones and Bruce Tarr, and we got 2 truckloads of food from the seniors who went to that dinner and brought stuff for the food pantry. So it's just amazing. And again, talking about the tremendous support, a couple of years ago, the Rotary bought us a refrigerator and a freezer. And then John Welch found a place for us to put it in the gym, which was magic politically. Because we had to move the garden club, and they've been wonderful too. So now we have a refrigerator and a freezer, and that means that when we buy things at the Greater Boston Food Bank, we can buy cheese and eggs and hamburger, things that we could never give out before. And just so that you have some statistics, in November, we purchased 7,640 pounds. The reason I do that, the Greater Boston Food Bank says, how many pounds did you buy and how many pounds did you distribute? So that's how we do it. And we consider a bag of groceries to be 10 pounds. And we've done a scientific random sampling and measured a whole bunch of bags of groceries, and they average 10 pounds. So that's pretty good. So 7,640 pounds of food came from the Greater Boston Food Bank. That included 48 turkeys that we put into our, it wasn't quite enough, but it put into most of our baskets. And that total was, cost us about 42 cents a pound. So when was the last time you bought hamburger for 42 cents a pound or whatever? We purchased about 2,500 pounds of food ourselves through our budget, things that we just couldn't get at the Greater Boston Food Bank. And this month, in November, because everyone thinks of poor people and the holidays, we got 9,800 pounds of food donated. That included 300 boxes. If you've been to Stop and Shop lately, they have these little $10 gift boxes you can give. We got 300 of them. Stop and Shop here in North Reading wins awards for how many they sell because our community is so generous. And so that, what is that? That's 18,000, about 20,000 pounds of food. And we have, we expect that we will, well, I guess I've already told you, that we gave out, I lost my number. We gave out 12,000 pounds of food this month, so we're a little bit ahead. But what I do want to emphasize is that people are hungry year-round. And although it's wonderful for people to think of us in the holiday season, to try to make sure that we're visible, we have a schedule of food donations, food drives, one a month. Every church, most organizations, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Rotary, each have a month. And the post office, for instance, they have their national food drive in May, so that's where we get our May drive. And what that means is that we have someone collecting food for us every month so that we can put food on the table. And hopefully, what I say to people, and one of the hardest things, and hopefully none of us will ever be in that position, but one of the hardest things to do is to ask for help. It takes a lot of courage to say, I can't put enough food on the table, or I can't pay my electric bill. So what I say to people is, first of all, if you get food from us, that's going to save you a couple $100s a month. That pays your light bill. You can be more independent. And the other thing is, once you get yourself out of this situation, you'll be helping somebody else soon. It all goes around. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Sandy, I'd just like to make a comment. You started by coming here to thank us.
Well, I do.
And
I really
we
do.
owe you and all your volunteers a real debt of gratitude.
Yeah.
And I think every board member would repeat that.
The volunteers are incredible. We have a volunteer board of directors who always are telling me, spend more money, get more stuff for the people. And then the volunteers that we have that go and pick things up at the various drop-off places like Stop and Shop and the library. The community is very supportive. And, it's a community effort. There's no question about it. Any other questions?
Mr. Prisco.
Thank you for coming in on such notice. I think it was really important to hear what's been going on in the food pantry, but I also can't thank all your volunteers, and especially you.
It's a group effort.
Yeah, but you don't get enough credit. And this town is, it's nice that we're able to provide this level of service for those folks that really need it. And thank you again
Well, you're
for coming
welcome.
in such
One thing
notice.
that Mike makes me remember, we do have some money on reserve for veterans, so that if veterans specifically are in financial need, we have some money put aside so that we are able to deal with that. And I work closely with Sue to make sure that if there are veterans that are in need, we hear about it. And I guess we ought to plug that if you want to donate, we have a website, we have a phone number, 978-276-0040, and we have a Facebook page. And if you're in need, we'd love to have you call us, because we're here to help. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Sandy.
Anyone else here for public comment? Why don't you give us an update on the interim municipal water agreement?
Certainly.
Saying it, we're not at 7:30.
Would you like to do the
You wanna do the
appointments, Mr.
appointments?
Chairman?
Oh, I'm
Taxation
sorry, I
agent?
skipped right over that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move to appoint the following individuals to the Taxation Aid Committee. Jeffrey Yule, Board of Selectmen, term to expire May 5th, 2015. Mary Prenny, Elder Affairs, term to expire December 31st, 2017.
Second.
We have a motion, do I hear a second?
I second it.
Second by Mr.
Yes.
Yule.
Does that mean you're
Any
volunteering?
discussion?
Yes. Well,
Mr. Yule?
I think Mary Penny's, her name speaks for herself and everything that she does. And I'm glad that she's, again, volunteered to take this role. The other guy I don't know so much about, but I'm glad that she did volunteer.
Anyone else? Mr. Prisco?
No, I just, I put a lot of time into this committee a few years ago and last year, and I'm happy that you guys are going to continue to go forward on it. I think it provides a big value to our seniors in need and those who just need help. But we're getting closer on trying to do some fundraising, and I know we did talk about Munis and adding something to the bills, and I just hope that you will continue to look into that option and to provide us an update on that, and I hope that will come to fruition. Other surrounding towns use a very similar structure, and it seems to be very successful for them to collect. Even if it's collecting $1 here or $5, it's really working, and it goes towards a very good cause. So I wish you best of luck, and if I can add any assistance until Jeff gets up to speed, I'm more than happy to help out in any way.
I appreciate that, Mike. Thank you.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? 5 minutes for an update on water?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. The board members have in their packet a copy of intermunicipal agreement that was approved by the Andover Board of Selectmen at their meeting last Monday night. I've spoken with the town manager with regard to this item, and he has asked that it be forwarded to the board for review and comment. Just briefly to summarize the contents, the agreement that has been approved by Andover is a 10-year intermunicipal agreement, which includes an option for withdrawal from the agreement at the end of the 5th year
I thought it was like,
with 1 year's notice. The rate structure that they've proposed is $3 per 100 cubic feet, which is less than the current residential rate in the town of Andover. They've proposed a 2.5% annual increase to that rate over the life of the agreement, and they have proposed a minimum gallon consumption of 300 million gallons per year. And I think those are the high points of the content of the agreement. There's a couple of areas where in the Andover Board of Selectmen meeting, they acknowledge that there may be some language that needs to be fine-tuned, and those are areas that we would need to work out. But broadly, this is the structure of the agreement that they have sent for our consideration. And one thing I will note is for the final year in the proposed structure is that the Andover is proposing that for that last year, should we determine that we were going to withdraw or terminate the agreement, that they proposed that we would pay a 25% premium on the water rate for that last year.
Just a clarification on that too, as far as the termination clause of 25% penalty, I know it says 1 year's notice. after the fourth year, you want to terminate the fifth year. But what if we were to do it in the sixth or the seventh year? Is there still a 25% penalty clause, or is that considered a bonus?
Based on the language, as I read it, that's what it is.
Doesn't matter what
I
year.
believe, once we give them a year's notice,
I'm
less than
more-
10 years,
Correct.
they're looking for a 25% penalty clause.
I thought about saying that at the end of 5 years, we come up with some kind of a tapering down program to, I think we're all in agreement that we'd like to maintain a connection with them. And, I could see us buying some volume of water to maintain that connection, to keep it flowing, so it's just not a shut valve that we can turn on when there's an emergency. It would help the town of Reading out. So,
Reading or-
Mike,
Reading.
yeah, it would
Reading.
help the town of Reading because they'd have a backup water supply.
Well, I
Yes.
mean, to interrupt, but just to go back to that, you'd also have to see if Andy will be okay with us in turn supplying Reading with water.
Right. So, the way I look at it is, we're somewhere in the 5-year range associated with getting MWRA water as we're thinking about it today. That we offer Andover rather than, we come back on the 25% penalty for turning it off, and we say, look, what we really like to do is taper it down over the remaining 5 years to this level, and have some kind of agreement that we take a certain volume of water. I don't know what that might be at this point, but we go forward with that approach and bring that back to them.
Go, Steve.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Briscoe?
I feel like we're all over the place on this because, going way back, like March, back in March, we voted on a 10-year agreement at a certain rate. And then somewhere along the way, that got derailed after we voted and agreed, and then went to a 5-year agreement, which I feel like I've wrapped my head around and just came, I've spent all my effort and time looking at a 5-year contract, and then how did the 10-year contract just come back up again?
Well, that's a good question, because actually, at one of their meetings, which I watched, they came back, they discussed a 5 and a 10, and they said, no, we're gonna go month 5
Yeah,
years.
we spent some time now, and we're trying to really make plans based on 5 years, so it's really hard to go backwards again. This is, in March, we're talking back in March we were here, and I think we were talking a $2.90 rate back then. Don't hold me to it, I can't remember exactly what the rate was, but I just was hoping you had an answer on that, but, okay. And then, and there was,
But sometimes,
Mr. Roberto's looking off.
and there was one more thing I wanted to ask, while Michael was looking for that.
what I'm gonna do is, we're gonna just, as the 7:30 has arrived, I think we'll just table this for a few minutes and
Okay, I have one more question, but I can ask it later on.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to answer the question, my understanding from the conversation is that the term was proposed as a means to provide the rate that was afforded the board as an option in February or March, which was the $3 per 100 cubic feet. The change is the language with regard to termination, which was not favorable to the town when proposed back in its form over the summer, if I recall. But we can speak further.
so we'll just table this
Okay?
until after the public hearing. So I'm going to open the public hearing on the FY 2015 tax classification. I was going to turn it over to the town administrator.
Mr. Chairman, I'll read the public notice.
Okay, please.
Board of Selectmen, notice of public hearing, property tax classification hearing. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, November 24th, 2014, at 7:30 PM at North Reading Town Hall, 235 North Street, room 14, to determine the percentage of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of real and personal property for fiscal year 2015 in accordance with provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56. Interested taxpayers are encouraged to present oral testimony at this hearing or may submit information on their views in writing to the Board of Selectmen's office, either to the above address or via email at townadministrator@northreadingmass.gov, no later than 12 noon on November 24th, 2014. Robert Messeri, Chairman, North Reading Board of Selectmen.
Has there been any written?
Mr. Chairman, no. No written correspondence, no electronic correspondence received.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as an update for the community, as the hearing notice has been read, we are in the classification hearing. We have submitted our total property valuation to the Department of Revenue. That was a submission that was done the very beginning of the month of November and is pending for review, and we anticipate approval. As of this evening, that approval has not occurred. The Department of Revenue has advised us that it's likely that it will happen in the next couple of days, and that we could reasonably anticipate that the valuation approval would be in place for a hearing as soon as this coming Monday, December 1st. Mr. Chairman, with regard to this hearing this evening, certainly it has been noticed, and the intention would be that it be continued to that point in time. However, if there are members of the public who wish to comment with regard to the issue of classification and have made their way out this evening, I think they certainly could do so. But for discussion purposes, we will not be presenting any specific data with regard to the valuation, forecasted tax rates, et cetera, in the interest of respecting the approval process that the Department of Revenue will go through. The board's been provided estimates, but those are estimates, and in the interest of ensuring the proper process is followed, we will not be proposing that information for discussion this evening, and would do so whenever the hearing is continued until.
Just as an add-on to that, it's our understanding that the delay in getting it certified is not that there's an issue with what we've provided. It's just their backlog of all the other towns doing all of this at the same time.
That's correct.
Even though we've certainly submitted our information quite early, evidently either they've got a lot of people who did it at the same time, or they're staffing, they're understaffed or something, I don't know.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So, does anyone want to make a comment at this point?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. O'Leary.
as in years past, I will be abstaining and not participating in any of the discussion in relation to the tax classification. I've been advised by the State Ethics Commission that because I have a family member who owns commercial real estate, that there may be some sort of a conflict. I don't necessarily agree with the decision, because everybody has an inherent conflict, whether they have a residential property or commercial property.
All right.
But that being said, in the interest of keeping us out of litigation, I will not be participating in any discussion or deliberations of the board in relation to the tax classification hearing, and I will be recusing myself going forward today and for whenever the board decides to move forward.
Continue the hearing. Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Leary. Anybody?
Thank you for all your hard work.
So before we close, we need to determine a date. And I thought when I polled the board earlier this week that everyone was available on Monday, but I think Mr. Fode either didn't, I wasn't explicit about Monday or whatever. So is Monday still an issue?
I should be able to reschedule what I have.
So then, Mr. Yule.
May I ask a question? I think you said that you anticipate the numbers being, the approval coming by Monday, but is it conceivable that it won't, and Tuesday is a better day?
Mr. Chairman, and certainly the assessor or the finance director can correct me if I misspeak on this, but there's really two steps. There's the review, and then there's the approval, and the two go hand in hand, and we've been advised that we will be reviewed, likely to be reviewed tomorrow. And again, no anticipated issues, but reasonably could expect that we would be approved at that time or shortly thereafter. So again, we've been advised that we could responsibly plan for next Monday, December 1st.
Late this afternoon, I spoke to the and she did say we're number 5, which puts us to certification tomorrow, and that is what he's thinking. So
Yesterday
I don't
we were-
really see a problem.
Yesterday we were 20,
Friday, we were 20,
Friday we were 20.
or Thursday.
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 So they're understaffed in there, and it's the time of year we go through this. So she didn't see a problem with certification being number 5 for tomorrow. And I'll be in touch with them if it doesn't happen tomorrow, Wednesday, and Friday. So,
Okay, well, I think they're probably not working on Friday, right?
I checked who would be there, and who would be there, and our advisor will be there, and the chief of the bureau said she will be there also.
They're open.
Okay, all
They
right.
are open.
Okay, I wasn't sure, so we got 3 days before, 3 working days. So I guess there's probably a fairly high probability, unless there's an issue found, that,
Right, which
Well-
the chief of the bureau did tell me today. She opened up the paperwork and she looked at it and she said, Deb, I don't see any questions, I don't see any alarming numbers. You know, what they do is they go by percentages of stats within a 5-year or a 3-year period. So she's already confirmed that. I mean, my thought was, why can't you just sign it? But that didn't work. So
They gotta do-
I feel very confident that, you know, it will happen by Friday.
okay.
You know, my hope is tomorrow.
So, Mr. Yule, do you have a problem with Monday, or were you
I have no
concerned
problem. No,
about?
I have no problem. I was
Oh,
just
okay.
thinking that
Okay.
if it wasn't approved by then.
So
we
the
have it
next
fast
question
night.
is, when do we want to have this meeting on? I think to have it at 6 o'clock is unfair to potential people that might want to come to the meeting.
Well, I mean, I disagree. I think 6 o'clock may be better for the staff to accommodate
Yeah,
a 6
might
o'clock
be.
meeting, since they accommodated us tonight at 7. And, you know, tonight, and this public hearing was in the paper, and there really isn't anybody here, so, I mean, out of respect to the staff, it would be more convenient to do 6 o'clock.
That's
And if the
certainly
board
in
members
time
can do
to
it.
get in the paper again, right?
We would not need to re-advertise in the
Yeah.
newspaper, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman. We
So
just need to
it's a
post in
continuance.
accordance with the open meeting law.
Right, but I mean, there's a possibility that
Perhaps we
it'll
could
get
work,
reported in the paper.
perhaps we could work with the transcript to update the
So
website.
what are the wishes of the board to have a meeting on December 1st at what time? 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock?
I'm in favor of 6, but it's up to
Doesn't
other
matter
members.
to me. I'm okay.
I know Steve and Joe have to travel quite a ways to get in, so.
I could be here at 6, doesn't matter.
Mr. O'Leary?
Are you anticipating any other?
Oh, that's
business
right.
Are you anticipating any other business taking?
Oh, Steve's not gonna be here.
I leave it up to the board.
No.
No, the only reason I ask it, again.
Right, okay.
You can have the night off.
Doesn't matter whether you're here or not, that is what you're saying.
Apparently not.
Matters.
But again, as I pointed out, and this is not part of this,
Mhm.
but, I will be out of town the week of the 8th.
Right,
I
so,
don't know if you were planning on putting anything else on the agenda, if that be the case. it may have-
well,
it is-
what's coming are appointments.
Mhm.
What else do we have on the agenda that we know of right now?
Yeah,
We
appointments
have
of the-
one thing scheduled on the 8th that,
We do Reading Municipal Light Department.
coming for a presentation. So if you feel comfortable missing that,
I look pretty comfortable.
well, we probably can't change the Reading Light thing anyway, so. I don't, the only other possibility is something comes out of Andover over the next week or so. Probably unlikely. All right, so we'll meet, we'll schedule the public hearing for December 1st at 6 PM. And it'll be the only thing,
No, the following.
it'll be the only thing on our agenda. And then we'll have our regular board meeting on the 8th of December.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Then have
Thank
to-
you.
motion.
all.
Hold on, I have to make a motion?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to continue the fiscal year 2015 tax classification hearing to Monday, December 1, 2014 at 7 PM.
Nope, 6.
6.
6 PM, it says.
Does it say 7?
It says 7.
Right, that's-
6 PM in room 14 of the town hall.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Yule, seconded by Mr. Fode. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
No,
One abstention.
Oh, sorry, Steve.
okay.
You can't even vote to,
Well, I take the risk.
You did a fine job.
Yeah,
let's continue with our discussion on the water agreement. Mr. Pris.
So my last question was, in what you received, did you get any information on how, according to them, we're in the rears on some money because we've had a difference of opinion on the water rate and what we've been paying since the water rate, since the contract expired? Thank you. So did they give you any idea what we're doing with that? Because to me, I don't believe we are in the rears. I don't believe we owe them any more money than we've already paid them. So I think that has to be part of this discussion when we're going through this.
When I approached the question to the town manager, he indicated that that would be a matter that would require attention to be addressed. It was not addressed in any way with regard to this proposal.
So if we get back to what we were paying back in, let's say, February, March timeframe. And the rate they proposed at that time was
$3.
$3. And I'm assuming this agreement will be effective, they'll backdate it to the first.
No,
of
it
the
doesn't
year.
say that.
No, the agreement says from the date you sign it, and both parties sign
Okay.
it going forward.
But it's silent about the money in the rears,
Yeah,
except that
so that's
there is some
something's gotta get resolved.
penalties that we have to pay for money in the rears going forward, so.
Let's go forward. And again, if the rate is currently $3 that we're paying, then it doesn't appear as though we'd be in arrears at all. But again, that needs to be resolved.
I would like to know as we're going through the
Well, we're
discussion.
not being asked to sign anything tonight
Yeah,
because it's
that's
still
fine.
some
I was
loose
just
ends,
curious
so, yeah.
if there was any information on that particular subject.
Okay, Mr. Yule.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do I understand it's a possibility, what they're really saying is that as far as anything in arrears, they want to save for a later discussion and deal with the contract and let it not interfere with the agreement? Am I,
No,
say that?
I don't know.
I watched that meeting, and there was zero discussion about what they were approving.
And there was zero
and
public
it-
discussion in relation from their 5-year to their 10-year term, and
Right.
so there obviously
In
was
fact,
some-
there was nothing, so that we had to wait until their town administrator presented
Right.
what you now have in your hands as their proposal. And it's clearly, it's got open issues, so,
Mr. Chairman, with regard to that matter, just going from my notes, it's an area that, when I asked the question of the implementation date, the response I received was either July 1st or subject to discussion, and that the matter of the so-called arrearage would need to be taken up. One alternative that the town manager and I have discussed is whether it would be worthy of each board designating a subcommittee of 2 members to have additional discussion with regard to the pending issues. That's something we may want to look to consider, as there certainly, it seems to be additional dialogue that needs to be had.
Mr. Yule.
I just need to get clear in my mind here. It still sounds to me that they want to discuss the contract and not really get into anything that is, any costs that are in arrears at this point, but to go forward with the contract and get that in place. I'm kind of gathering that.
I don't think you can jump to that conclusion.
No, I just got the sense that it was not, in my discussion, that it just was not an issue that was proposed to be resolved in this draft.
That's fine.
And I don't, personally, I don't see it to be first of all, a big issue or an obstacle one way or the other.
Right.
I mean, we
Right.
need
From our
to, we
perspective,
need to
I-
come to some sort of terms with the town of Andover in relation to they're supplying us water for whatever terms, conditions that we can agree to. That needs to be taken care of. I think we have an honest difference of opinion as to what the current terms and conditions are. That's, to me, an side issue.
This
Right.
number proposal
That's
is
what I'm
pretty
saying.
much back to what was
What
presented back in February.
Yeah.
It's almost like, whatever took place between then and their last meeting, they put aside, and they're back to where they were in February.
And I think the biggest thing is, obviously, the termination notice and the penalty associated with that.
That got lowered.
That's the big difference in the proposal. Time frame and time-wise, we agreed on a 10-year contract. That's what they have proposed here, but they've, again, switched midstream here in relation to some of the terms and conditions based upon termination in minimum gallonage. So those are two big issues that need to be resolved, and hurdles, I look upon them as hurdles, that need to be resolved. I don't see it being as insurmountable. I think, as I stated before, Andover has been a terrific partner for the town of North Reading since approximately 1991, when the legislation was passed, which allowed for the intermunicipal agreement to take place. They've been providing us with water. We've been a very good customer, probably the best customer, best paying customer, and I think in recognition of that, I think there needs to be some good wholesome discussion in relation to the potential of allowing them to wean off of us a bit over a period of time so that the financial impact isn't so devastating up there that it unreasonably impacts the residents of Andover. At the same time, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our own residents and our own ratepayers, and I think something fair and equitable, I hope, can be resolved in short order. So,
Well, I think, Steve, one of the things that comes out of what they propose now is that it's a predictable rate for the first 5 years.
Right.
And if we can overall, depending on what we want to do, we know what the numbers are. And, if we can convince them of modifying the end, the 6 years, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 to some roll-off without the penalty, and those numbers may work better for them and
It
make
may
it
certainly work
be
better.
easier for
It
them.
may certainly work better for them if we
Then-
guarantee them some sort of a purchase from them, rather than
Just cutting it off.
shutting off the spigot. And again, I think there is some merit, a considerable amount of merit, in order to maintain a relationship with Andover, to some sort of minimum amount of gallonage to be purchased at later dates, for maybe longer than a 10-year period. So I think we've got a starting point that's a little bit better than where we were at, but I think it's still, I think the penalty clause is something that we need to have more discussion with them, and I think the minimum gallonage is something we have to talk about too. I mean, we're going to provide that amount of gallonage for the foreseeable future anyway, but again, as we talk about, diminishing that amount to a certain level, where we would agree to a certain level going forward, I think it would be in everybody's best interest. So hopefully they're going to be reasonable, willing to discuss it a little bit further, and I look forward to engaging in that discussion board to board.
So how is the board feeling about assigning 2 members of the board in case it comes to that for further discussion and try to bring this thing to closure?
That's what we
Okay.
have to do.
Everybody okay
That's
with
what we have
that?
to do.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
And do we want to decide on who that is now?
I think the chair, and I think Mr. Fode has the requisite expertise.
That would be my recommendation.
When it comes to
Everyone
turning the
okay
tap
with that?
water on.
Mr.
Absolutely.
Fode, okay with that?
I'm fine with it, thank you.
Okay, good. So you've got some talking points to bring back to
I do.
the Andover Town Manager, Buzz.
Thank you for the feedback.
Okay, further discussion,
Yeah.
Mr. Yule?
Yeah, I don't want to be a dead horse, I don't want to have it misunderstood, but I don't know if Mike's question has been answered as far as the arrears, as far as the water is concerned. I think what my concern is that somewhere along the line that's going to come back up, and it may
No, I think,
come back and
I
bite
think
us.
that has to be
I
resolved.
think it's going to
as
get
part of the whole
resolved
thing.
as we go through the process.
Yeah.
I was just asking the question if it was just missing from the file. I just wanted to know if maybe they completely forgot about it, or was it addressed and it hasn't been provided to us. That's all. But I know it'll get worked out as we go through the process. I don't think to me, that one's not even on my
No,
radar.
based on the numbers that proposed.
based on what we have in front of us.
The main issue goes away.
Right. It's really not a big deal.
I hope
right
so.
now.
Okay. Right.
We won't forget
Well,
about
that's
it,
what I'm worried
though.
about
And they won't
later.
forget
They
about it
certainly
either.
won't.
I don't think either side's going to forget about it.
No, we have other things to work out before we have to address that one.
Okay, so town
Wait,
administrator.
There's one more
Oh,
question related to
yeah,
it.
sorry.
How does the 300 million gallons compare to our average purchase now?
That is the average roughly.
It's lower than the average. I think the average comes in about 317.
Yeah, it was
Three,
317.
yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the analysis, it's a pretty reasonable number, I think.
And you got to keep in mind that our well production is tapering down
Yeah,
without
and the
some
oth-
major expenditures.
I think the other thing that the town administrator can discuss with the DPW director and superintendent of water is that if it looks like we're not getting to that point, then we can cut down on our own production and purchase utilize their 300 million gallons before we even dip into our own.
The only reason I asked is an earlier proposal from them, I thought their minimum was something higher than.
325.
It's 325,
Their cost, our cost to purchase from them is greater than our cost to produce.
Correct, but if you,
So,
but if,
maybe
it-
so if we're gonna be throttling back on our production, it's at a greater cost.
correct.
So again,
Yeah,
that's why I
it could
assume.
have.
No, I
That's
agree,
why
but
I
I'm
assume the
saying,
discussion is going to.
yeah, and I just said that for purpose of
I don't
discussion.
think we're
I'm
in the-
confident it's going to.
No,
I
I
don't think
just-
we're in
I-
the position to supply the water to bring the number down below
No, I just
300
said
at this point.
for purpose of discussion, if we're gonna go with the 300 million as
Right.
a minimum, we can, guarantee we use that first, instead of paying for something we don't use.
Right, which is why the threshold, I'm sure, is going to be topic of discussion.
Correct.
Okay, anything else? Seeing none, town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few things that I will note for discussion. First is that the police department hosted the informational meeting regarding the Massachusetts Sex Offender Registry regulations in this room last Thursday evening. Attendance was between 50 and 60 individuals. That was a very well-attended program. A very thoughtful presentation put together by the chief, his command staff, and delivered by Sergeant Howe, who did a tremendous job not only making the presentation, but answering questions from the residents as well. Certainly a very engaged crowd here that evening, and I give compliments to the police chief on his work and his command staff's work as well. Secondly, the town planner is preparing a district local technical assistance grant application to be submitted to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, which would request approximately $25,000 in technical assistance for economic development planning on the Main Street Route 28 corridor. The plan, as proposed, would consist of a build-out and market analysis of specific areas that could support economic development activity focused on the area at the intersections of Route 28 and Route 62. And complementing that are a couple of other alternatives that are under evaluation right now. One is a Massachusetts Downtown Initiative grant, which is run by the Department of Housing and Community Development. It would be $10,000 in technical assistance, and there's ongoing discussion as to a potential grant application that we could file.
Might be able to help you with that after the first of the year.
Yes. Thank you, Selectman Fode. But that would represent an area to make potentially some aesthetic improvements to complement any potential economic activity that may take place in the area. And then secondly, and I don't want to overstate it, Selectman Prisco, so certainly speak up if you'd like to deliver more information on it, but I know that there's a technical assistance grant from the Urban Land Institute that could potentially be useful in helping us with regard to the J.T. Berry property as well, and I know that's something that's being looked at closely by the town planner as well. So I offer all of that. These are applications, areas where we'll be making our best good faith effort to ask for technical assistance and/or grant funding with a goal of trying to put forth an aggressive economic development initiative with the limited resources that we have. And I think you'll see here that we're trying to target a particular area, an area where we think that there's a density in terms of the traffic that might be ripe for additional development, and we hope to continue that, and I'll certainly keep the board and the community apprised as those discussions proceed.
So, if I could
Mr.
maybe add to
President.
that? Yeah, so one of the things that Danielle and I have done since you approved the money for the EdStat and the flyover and a few of the other things in this current year operating budget, we don't want to have to keep coming back asking for money, but we do think these types of things are very important for us to accomplish as we go through the economic development process. So, and I give Danielle a lot of credit, she's putting a lot of time to try to go find this money. I think we should take advantage of them. I think the town is ripe and qualified to receive these grants. And it does all tie back into that EdSat that it's the Economic Development Self-Assessment Tool that a lot of us had attended at the Hillview last week. And as that data is getting pulled together, there's going to be a lot of useful information in there. And these grants will actually help us try to break some of that data down and be useful. So having the money and the technical assistance, the consultants for $25,000 to help us go through that data will really be helpful for us to deliver a report to this committee as we start looking at economic development going forward.
Thank you. Continuing with the report, unless there's additional comment. But just to reference what's been all over the media for the past couple of weeks, there certainly seem to be financial challenges going on at the state level. Governor Patrick proposed last week what he proposed were mid-year cuts to unrestricted general government local aid, which was proposed in the amount of 2.7% and would have been approximately $43,000 in a direct reduction to our state aid. As has been widely reported, the Speaker of the House has opposed this. However, there are other areas where reductions may occur in terms of the state aid that we receive. We'll need to continue to closely monitor the governor's actions, both this governor's and the next, and the condition of the state finances with regard to this year, as well as the next fiscal year. So I just note that as an kind of an ongoing area, and it's an area that's been watched closely by the financial planning team as well. I attended the first public hearing of the Massachusetts Foundation Budget Review Commission, which was held in Danvers last Monday evening. I didn't testify, but I went to hear the concerns of the variety of represented communities and constituencies, really to understand the tone and tenor of the discussion and where it might be going. There are other hearings that are forthcoming throughout the state, and I'll continue to monitor the discussion, but it's an important one because I think it's one where there's almost universal dissatisfaction with the Chapter 70 formula, but the question becomes, well, what's going to be done about it? There's clearly a lot of discussion with regard to the funding that's being that the cities and towns need, but equally important is how that money is divided. So again, I'll continue to monitor that. And just to report back on two items that were brought up at the last board meeting. The first is with regard to the status of the town council budget of the approximately $112,500 that we had for general fund purposes. We've expended approximately 24% of that budget at this point in the fiscal year. That's a rough estimate. And finally, in regard to the request brought up concerning veterans benefits, it is an area that the Veterans Director has been evaluating with the Finance Director, who I know has been working with the Town Treasurer as well. And the short answer is it certainly is something that is technically feasible for us to do, and certainly that we could look to do legally. What we're looking at now is the impact that transition might have on the management of particular cases where there are needs in particular cases, and where one-on-one dialogue is important, as well as the implication it may mean for, or could mean for, other vendors who are outside of the vendor program. So that's something that the finance...
What was it we're talking about again?
Direct deposit.
Direct deposit for
veteran
Direct
benefits.
deposit, I'm sorry, okay, yeah.
So it's something that we're looking at. It's certainly something that is technically possible and legally possible. The question becomes implementation, and we'll
Yep.
continue to evaluate it. And I appreciate the Finance Director's
Yeah.
attention to it over the
No,
past
I-
couple of days in light of everything else that's going on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I know they appreciate you looking into it, because it would be a significant benefit for them, especially in the wintertime, to try to come in every week to get a check in the winter it could be challenging for a lot of them, so if we can make this happen, it'd be great.
I'd also note the work of the Veterans Agent to try to expedite this. She's paid particular attention to it and is also sensitive to it.
Thanks, Susan, for me. Thank you.
And that's the conclusion of my comments for this evening, Mr. Chairman.
I just have a question regarding EdStat.
Yes.
Yes.
They committed to get back to us at some point in time?
Yes.
Have there been any communications?
We are not expecting a report of their findings until early January.
Early
Right.
January?
And the planner and I are in the process of sending out a mailing to thank those who attended and advise them of the timeline, and advise them that we'll be asking the group to come back together to discuss the report.
What I thought was great, there was a large attendance of business owners at the meeting.
Yeah, well, Danielle, that was one of the strategies, to make sure we reached out to them. They had to be part of the process.
Yeah,
It was very important to have them answer the questions.
yeah. No,
And-
but, for them to take time out of
Yeah.
the day for that. It wasn't, a one-hour meeting. And
But I think it's gonna really give us a nice roadmap, the way forward, where we need to apply our attention going forward. It's gonna be good.
Okay, Michael, you're up.
So tied into that, as we're collecting all that data for the EDSAT, I also met with the Social Services Act team, went to the CIT, because as we're collecting this data, and one of our objectives that we've all decided we wanted to focus on was the seniors and what we could do for seniors. When we're collecting this data, there is senior data that was, when we go through the EDSAT, you look at the population over the last 10 years, over 65, we've had an increase of over 34% of our population is over 65. That's probably the largest increase than anybody else across the state. North Reading, just little old North Reading. So that kind of data, as we're pulling that together, means that we do have to find solutions to support that objective that we all agree that we want to focus on. And as we go through this economic development, we're also looking at things like housing. And do you tie housing into some of the economic development areas? I'm not saying it's a great idea, but those types of things will be researched as we go through this, and especially some of the grants that we're looking for. We will get some of that consulting. MAPC, if that $25,000 grant, they're going to have consultants to help us look at that. So I wanted to tie in with the SSAT and have them part of this discussion. So I think that's important to tie that into all this, based on the stats that you see that kind of number. I want to thank everybody again for coming to the EDSAT, and especially our business community. That was wonderful. I wanted to mention that the middle school is doing Wizard of Oz this year, December 12th and 13th. So if we could get the word out, and I hope we get great participation. I'm looking forward to seeing the show. JT Berry, let me just give everybody just a quick update on that. So we finalized Phase 2, what Weston and Sampson's going to do. The town has signed the license agreement with the state. Weston and Sampson has signed that license agreement. It is up with DCAM. Last week, I asked Danielle if we could get back with the state. I'm not trying to put any pressure on them, but our Phase 1 license is still effective until December 1st. So I don't want to take, this valuable time and have Weston and Sampson sitting on the sidelines. So we were able to discuss with them, and they agree that we could go in and start some of our Phase 2 things like marking for dig safe, where we're going to do some of the digging. We can do those types of things that fit under our Phase 1 license. So we're moving forward. Speaking with Danielle today in the state, it sounds like we're going to get our final signature from them, hopefully
This is for
this
Phase
week.
2, right?
This is for Phase 2. Hope with the short week and all, I'm hoping we get it before they break for Thanksgiving. If not, it'll be hopefully the week prior, the week following. But Weston and Sampson's doing a great job trying to lean forward to make sure that they can get a lot of the administrative things in place, the markings in place, so we can get dig safe out there again and make sure we can execute as soon as it's signed. We can meet the December 31st deadline. Question to Liz, if I could, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the water bills, you are now moving over to the new structure under Munis, is that correct? Or have we already done it, or are we going to do that?
We are going live with the new water bills, utility billing in Munis, the beginning of February.
In beginning of February?
Right, so we're still using our old system for water and trash
Those bills just came out.
Yeah, and the reason I bring it up is because I had a few phone calls, people getting $700, $800 water bills that never had them before, and when I asked them to go back and look at how many days it covered, well into 120s, 125 days, and usually, Mr. Fode, if I could ask you a question, is it around 90?
Correct.
So I'm not sure where the break is, and of course, once you go over a certain amount, you go into the next tier. So, which these people, there's several people that have reached out because they've known we brought this issue up before. I know it's not your problem. I'm only asking because I wasn't sure if maybe it was due to the change of bill structure. But if
Except
Mr.
to do with the reading.
If we could try to get our hands around it, I did ask those individuals to come in and see the water department. Just bring the bills in, and maybe they can get some explanation of why they're 120 or 125 days with the bills being in the $700. And they've lived in town many years and never had a bill even close to this, so. I think it's,
If the town administrator, would like me to, I'll speak with the water department and find out what the reason.
I'll send a note to the superintendent and copy you on it. And
Okay.
thank you.
Don't sit down.
Say, yeah.
We
sorry.
talked about this a while ago when the real estate tax bills came out with the payment cycle is different. And before you're able to schedule your payment,
Mhm.
that still isn't fixed.
Right, they're working on it. We were hoping for the the tax bill that's due February 1st. That was the timeline that we were hoping for.
Okay.
So
And
that is
that'll
being
mean
worked-
all the bills then.
I'm sorry.
That'll also include water, all the utility bills too.
Correct.
Because they're gonna
yes.
be flipping over and have the same
Yes.
problem.
Mhm,
Okay.
Exactly, yep. We're working with Unibank, who
Mhm.
is the provider of the online
Yeah.
payments. And they are, writing a program for not just us, but other communities that had that issue with going live with Munis, so.
And I just have one last thing. I just want to wish all my board members and your families and the community and the folks here tonight, happy Thanksgiving. Take the time, please, enjoy the family. It was really nice to have Sandy in here tonight to talk to us about the services that our pantry provides. I think it's a wonderful thing. And I know we shouldn't only focus on it during this time, but I think it was appropriate. And thank you to the community that has contributed so much to helping our food pantry continue to be successful. So thank you.
Mr. Fode.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing major. I had a meeting about a week and a half ago with members of the Youth Services Committee and Peter Majan and Amy Lekowitz regarding some of their bylaws that are kind of antiquated and I want to relook at and maybe update. So we had a very fruitful discussion. I took some of the stuff back, read it, and gave some comments back to them. So they're going to be meeting with their committee hopefully over the next couple of weeks and have something back to us sometime probably late January, early February on some suggestions. I want to congratulate Representative Jones and his family and Senator Tarr on a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner yesterday. It was my third one, and I tell you, it gets to be more fun every year. I was fortunate enough to be able to sit next to the town administrator on one side and superintendent of schools on the other, so they kept me entertained for most of the day also,
that
along
right?
with the music.
Or did you keep them entertained?
So it was a fun event. I enjoyed it, as I do every year. So I want to thank them and congratulate them for a wonderful time. And it was wonderful, Steve, to see your mother. She looks wonderful. I mean, I just can't get over her. She looks great. And it's nice to have a conversation with her and hear a new story every year. So it was great. Again, reiterate what Mr. Prisco said. Wish everybody a wonderful Thanksgiving, and it's one of my favorite holidays because you're not worried about cleaning up wrapping paper and who's not happy with their gifts. So enjoy.
I've never been happy with any gift you've given me.
Mr. Yule.
Yes. I too want to thank Brad Jones and Linda Jones and Bruce Tarr for it really was a wonderful event for Thanksgiving. And so it's so good to see the seniors get there and have this moment in time where they, the year is long for them. And when they get together, it's good to see them laughing and cajoling each other and so on. So again, it's a wonderful event that we do every year, and may it never stop. Okay. Now, they do have the road race coming up on Thanksgiving morning, and anybody who's going to participate or who hasn't decided to participate, all you have to do is show up and run. That's all you have to do. I understand the weather's not supposed to be so great, but we're people from North Reading, we can handle bad weather. Also, the EdSat, I attended that meeting. I got there a few minutes late. It was really so informative and so helpful, and to see the businesses there. And I want to thank Mike for all the work that he has put into it and making sure that EdSat happened, because it's something that's so important for us to be able to sit down and gather, get ideas about our community and what ideas people might have, especially from the business community. And I want to wish everybody a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving, a healthy Thanksgiving. I think we all have a lot to be thankful for, one way or another. There's always somebody in worse-case scenario than us, but have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Mr. O'Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, just to echo my colleagues' comments, Brad and Linda Jones and Senator Tar again put on a terrific event yesterday at the Hillview, and Pat Lee and his crew served up a wonderful meal. And in relation to my mother being there, she was certainly happy to be there and enjoys it every year, and we're happy to have her there. And but once again, it was a very successful event. Congratulations to them, because it's not easy to keep that going, and special appreciation to sponsors such as a couple of members of the board here. You know, it's greatly appreciated by the seniors of the community. I want to wish the North Reading Hornets the best of luck tomorrow in their football game against Linfield, in the annual rivalry.
Where is it tomorrow?
Linfield.
It's in Linfield.
Thursday, though.
It's
Yeah.
in Linfield.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Beautiful brand-new facility, too.
yeah. Well, let's hope that
We
Linfield's a
ruined
little
it.
disappointed. You know, they can bring Turkeys back home. The Turkeys, is, for those of the Joe knows, a paper mache turkey that they, like a trophy that they hand back and forth over the years. And this is a long-standing rivalry, and it's a great time. It's a nice time to renew old acquaintances, and best of luck to the Hornets tomorrow. To everybody who's traveling, again, the road conditions are going to be a little bit tough starting Wednesday. So drive carefully, get to your destination safely, and hopefully you have a wonderful holiday. And to Sandy Carricker and the North Reading Food Pantry, you had a great presentation this evening, very timely. And just, you know, her reminder that, you know, it isn't just at the holiday seasons that people are in need. Again, just encourage everybody to participate throughout the year. But their efforts are not to go unappreciated or unnoticed, and they do a fantastic job.
Thank
I
you,
wish
Chief.
everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, you know, rather than be totally redundant and echoing what everyone has said, with respect to the senior Thanksgiving dinner, your mother was a key founder in making that happen, and it'll be great over time to hopefully be able to continue that. And I think that it's well appreciated by, you know, what little we end up doing for our seniors, and we need to do more. I think Mike has talked about it, I've been talking about it, and somehow, some way we'll find a way of doing
gonna
more
work on
for our seniors. And, you know, having Sandy here and the work that the food pantry does for our community, and those people that, and businesses that support it. Yeah, wish them all a great Thanksgiving. Mike and I continue to meet as members of the financial planning team. We are moving along in the typical process of starting with a financial plan and building on it, understanding, you know, where we are. The news is kind of gray at the moment, and maybe things will get brighter, and maybe they won't, but we'll be prepared to deal with that. The chamber has a new executive secretary, I think is the title,
Yeah,
or something like that.
maybe director, executive director.
I saw an email a couple days ago. I responded suggesting that we reinitiate if it wasn't quarterly, semi-annual meeting with yourself and the chairs. And we could also invite them to, or their representatives to one of our meetings at some point in time and get that communication going again, too.
Yeah.
I'll contact him.
So, and then lastly, you know, I attended the EdStat meeting, and Michael, I think that that's really a good step forward. I'm anxious to see what comes back from the group.
I am too.
The fact that they've already talked to a large number of communities and, you know, have some good data to compare us against and recommendations.
Well, Danielle and I brought the idea to the board, but it was the board that recognized funding it was in the best interest of the town. So I appreciate the thanks and all, but it really was a board decision. I mean, it's the vision we need to have, and I support it. So it really was all of us, not just me. So, and Danielle, can't say enough about all the time and effort she gives me and gives to the community in this economic development. But it's important. It really is the lifeline of our future. So we're going to get there. We're gonna
And
make some
lastly, I
progress.
want to wish our board members a happy Thanksgiving. I wish our town employees the same. And we'll see you next Monday. Hopefully, we'll
Yeah,
have
let's
the
hope. For a public hearing.
information we need to finish the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn unless someone else has something to say.
Move to adjourn.
Did I hear a motion?
Yes, you did.
And a
Second by
second?
Jeff, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah. Wow. 8:15.